Hello, hello. So, welcome to this episode of the Calmer You podcast. I'm talking about the signs of burnout today. So, yeah, I'm going to mention the different signs, things that you can look out for, because it's interesting. Because I did a workshop in my membership, the Calmer You Collective, recently, and we were talking about burnout. We were talking about the symptoms of burnout. And the weird thing is that almost everyone that was in that workshop related to the symptoms of burnout, but they hadn't necessarily ever thought that it was burnout. So it's really interesting. I think we're hearing so much about burnout. I've talked about it quite a bit on the podcast, had different guests talk about it. And it's interesting that although lots of people are experiencing this and realize they're experiencing burnout, I think there are also a lot of people who, experience stress and anxiety and are exhibiting signs of burnout but never really realized that's what it was. The thing with burnout is it's really good to not burn out. It's really good to not get that to that point where you're really, really exhausted and depleted and you can't get out of bed. Because once it's got to that point, it's almost like it's too late to help yourself. You just got to stop everything and rest. So we want to look out for the earlier signs of burnout so that we don't get to that stage. Because burnout is sadly something that can take weeks or months or years to recover from. So I'm going to share 9 signs of burnout and the things to look out for. So number 1 is feeling overwhelmed. So it's kind of quite a general one. I think probably everyone feels overwhelmed from time to time, but are you feeling overwhelmed a lot of the time? Are you feeling like you can't keep up with your work or your personal life, as though there's always too much to do? Your workload is always overwhelming you, and you feel as though you're kind of scrambling to keep on top of everything. And maybe you're so overwhelmed that you just don't have a chance to rest or take care of yourself or even take stock and kind of realize what's happening. You might be in quite a confused, overwhelmed state. And the weird thing that happens when we're overwhelmed, it's like we might have a lot to do. And I know this is what it's like for me when I'm overwhelmed. It's like I can't do any of it because what happens when we're in fight or flight, when we're in a stress response, we lose our ability to focus. We lose our ability to concentrate. Everything, one sign that I always know, I know when I'm overwhelmed because I'll find myself clicking between different browser tabs on my laptop without really looking at anything, just kind of almost like compulsively clicking through different tabs. That's a really sure sign for me that I'm in overwhelm and I'm not being effective and I'm not really getting anything useful done. I also notice this kind of like, doesn't happen very often these days, thankfully, but sometimes if I'm stressed, I'll get like a tight feeling around my chest. It almost feels like there's a belt around my heart, like squeezing. And it's a horrible, horrible feeling. So notice in yourself, what are the signs that you are becoming overwhelmed? I shared 2 of mine there, but what are the signs that you are becoming overwhelmed? Because it's different for everyone. And if we can become alert to the signs, then we can catch it early, then we can do something about it. So number 2, this is probably the most common thing that we hear when it comes to burnout, is feeling exhausted, feeling as though you have no energy. And that might look like waking up in the morning, perhaps you've been in bed for 10 hours or 8 hours or 9 hours, and technically you've been in bed for that amount of time, but you still feel bone tired when it's time to get out of bed in the morning. It might be that because you're experiencing stress and anxiety, that you actually struggle to switch off and sleep. Or maybe you wake up multiple times in the night. And again, that can come hand in hand with burnout. Burnout's obviously very linked to stress and anxiety. And of course, when we're really tired, not only do we feel kind of run down and, as if everything's just really hard work, but our cognitive function decreases. So we're not able to think easily, we're not able to concentrate, make decisions. And of course, that has a knock-on effect. Everyone knows, well, I think most people would agree that when you're tired, you become grumpier, taking it out on your loved ones and that sort of thing, which is no good for anyone at all. So really looking out for when that tiredness is becoming when it's becoming like an everyday feature, or when it doesn't matter how much you sleep, you still feel really, really tired. And I know there may be some people, struggling with things like long COVID, Maybe you've got really young children, and that's a reason for being exhausted. But burnout is a bit different to, just other types of tiredness. It really is when our body is completely depleted and when our stress levels just become so untenable that the body's just become completely overwhelmed. So number 3, although this isn't exactly one thing, but I've just categorized it as physical symptoms. So I'm talking about aches and pains. I'm talking about weird kind of little niggly feelings in your body. I'm talking about having more frequent coughs and colds. Maybe you've had COVID more than once, because prolonged stress taxes our immune system. It's kind of this thing of, if your body's in survival mode, which it is when we're stressed consistently, our resources in our body, being stressed uses up a lot of resources, it uses up a lot of energy, uses up a lot of even our B vitamins get kind of eaten up when we're stressed. And so when these things get depleted, our immune system takes a hit. So be on the lookout for those physical symptoms for you. And for some people, it's like our bodies are trying to send us a message. And that message might be that you're getting, bloating or IBS type symptoms, or you're having colds or headaches or something. And we really want to pay attention to those symptoms and not just soldier on or try to continue, even though we might be really struggling. Your body has, such an incredible amount of wisdom, and we really need to listen to our bodies. So keep an eye out for those physical symptoms, those signs that you're close to burning out. Okay, the next one is trouble concentrating. Kind of touched on this before. Are you finding that your mind constantly wanders? If I'm struggling to concentrate, I have this really annoying habit that I can get into sometimes and I'm sure, some of you can relate to this. I constantly pick up my phone. It's like I constantly pick up my phone, check WhatsApp, check, my Hotmail. I don't have my work emails on my phone anymore. That was a game changer. But getting distracted, mind wandering, finding yourself drifting onto different news websites several times in the day. It's another sign. If you're constantly distracted, it's another sign, I guess, that you might be tired, that you're struggling to concentrate, that you're struggling to focus. And again, this can show up as a sign of burnout. When we're stressed or anxious, the brain is in fight or flight. It's not a great state to be concentrating in. We will find ourselves with a wandering mind. We'll find ourselves getting distracted easily. It's like being on high alert a lot of the time. Being on high alert, you're kind of always on the lookout for danger, basically. And if your nervous system is in a mode of being on high alert, of course you can't focus on reading a document or doing a spreadsheet or reading a book, even whatever it is that you need to do. We need to be in a calmer state if we want to focus. So again, look out for this as a sign of burnout, essentially. So this next one is not pleasant at all. It's feeling negative. So are you pessimistic at the moment? Are you just generally irritable? Are you just kind of not in a good mood? And of course, there are lots of different things that can cause this: depression, anxiety, but prolonged stress and anxiety, burnout, being overwhelmed with work, being overwhelmed with just life events. I mean, there's a lot going on right now in the world, isn't there, to be negative about? So no one would blame you. But if you're more cynical than normal, perhaps, I don't know, if your friends or family or colleagues are pointing out to you that you're more cynical than perhaps you have been in the past, if you're sort of saying to yourself, what's the point? I can't be bothered. Oh, there's no point in doing that. It's a sign that our stress levels are wearing us down, basically, are draining our energy. And it's a sign of burnout, this kind of cynical attitude. We just don't have maybe the energy to get ourselves out of that hole. And of course, if we're thinking negatively about the future, that's kind of the essence of anxiety, really. And so, thinking about the future in a negative way, worrying about the future, again, that can drain your energy, your mental resources, and can just lead to more burnout. So it can become like a vicious cycle almost. So the next one is lacking creativity. So maybe you normally actually like your job, you love your job even, but suddenly you find that you're struggling to come up with ideas, you're struggling to problem solve in the way that you used to be able to. And that's because when we're burning out, when we're reaching burnout, or we've got chronic stress, our creativity and our productivity takes a hit. So maybe you lose your joie de vivre or your lust for life. And creativity flourishes when we're calm and relaxed. Our brains, again, it comes down to what our brains are doing. So if your brain is in high alert, it's in fight or flight, then we're not going to be able to think about things, think laterally. We're going to be, when we're in fight or flight, we're the brain's getting us just to look at exactly what's in front of us right now so that we can run away or fight. It's not about, thinking of creative possibilities. We're more likely to think in black and white. So is something dangerous or not dangerous? Is it good or bad? And, that's not very conducive to creativity, I can imagine. So if you feel like you've lost your kind of creativity, again, another sign of burnout. Next up is self-doubt. So again, a lot of these could be to do with other things, but it's also a sign of burnout. If you're tired, if you're stressed, if you're having difficulty concentrating, if you're more negative, like that's going to have an impact on so many different areas of your life, perhaps on your relationships, perhaps on just how you feel about your work, how you feel about yourself. Can be like almost a bit of an identity crisis if you're normally someone who has energy, who's enthusiastic and creative. And so all these things can impact on our self-image, and you might find yourself not feeling good about yourself, or as good about yourself, or feeling less good about yourself than you did in the past, or feeling like you're not good enough. And of course, these things can also, go back to childhood, but it's almost like, I often say this to my clients, some of these things that we may have taken on board in childhood, say you had a really critical parent and they were always pointing out your faults. And then suddenly you're in a stressful work environment where maybe you've got a manager that's quite critical, or, you've got a lot of deadlines, a lot of pressure. And suddenly that kind of self-doubt from the past, from being told that you weren't quite good enough by that parent, kind of bubbles up to the surface, essentially. And this is just what can happen really, really often. So that's another reason that self-doubt can show up. And yeah, burnout can knock your confidence. So if you're experiencing that, it's no wonder. The next one is procrastination. Procrastination. Yes, I relate to procrastination, and my heart does go out to anyone that is stuck in procrastination, because it's horrible, because you want to be doing stuff, you got stuff you need to do, you want to be productive, and yet there seems like there's this just invisible force that is stopping you. And the less you do, the more you beat yourself up, which drains your motivation and energy even more. Now, actually, a lot of procrastination has to do with fear of failure, actually. And I have talked about this on the podcast before about procrastination. So perhaps have a search back and see that if you want to check that out more. But yeah, another sign, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you're low in energy, you're doubting yourself, procrastination is kind of a natural side effect of that. And of course, beating yourself up, that uses up a lot of energy. That drains a lot of energy for us. So if you're beating yourself up about not getting stuff done, about the fact that you're procrastinating, it kind of feeds into this negative cycle. So the last sign of burnout is isolation and withdrawal. So maybe you find yourself just having the sense that you can't cope with people. Maybe you've got loads of WhatsApp messages or emails that you need to reply to, but you almost can't bring yourself to. And the longer you leave it, the harder it is to, actually go and reply. Perhaps you've been saying no to social events or opportunities, or you just haven't felt like you can open up to people. And this is what can happen when we're in burnout, when we're stressed and overwhelmed and tired. Unfortunately, at a time when we would probably need our friends and family the most, and probably need to be open and asking for support or receiving support, it can seem like it's really hard to do that, because being sociable or being around people can just seem too much. And all the different signs and things that I've already spoken about can play into this. And the more you withdraw, the harder it can be to re-engage, to actually pop up and say, so I didn't reply to your last 20 WhatsApp messages, but I'm back. And that can seem really hard to do if you have been withdrawing. So it can be something that just kind of escalates. So yeah, this makes me really sad, I think. I definitely have found myself wanting to withdraw from time to time. And I know a lot of people in my own life who do this. And yeah, just to say that, yeah, we do need each other. We do need other people in our lives, especially when we're close to burning out. And so, yeah, know that I'm sure your family and friends would prefer you reached out, even if you hadn't been in contact for a while. Explain how you're feeling, be open about what's been going on. And most people are going to be very understanding. So, yeah, talked about 9 signs of burnout to keep an eye out for. If you're experiencing any of these things, it's really important to take some action to do something about it. Please don't just think to yourself, oh, I'm going to get my head down and get through the next few months at work, or if I just keep busy, then it will stop. Because the problem is burnout. Yeah, we don't want to get to that point. We don't want to get to that point of really burning out because it can take a long time to recover from burnout. So we want to catch it early. And I remember what one of my friends, Selena Barker, who wrote a book called Burnt Out, said. And she said, if you're getting close to burnout or you're experiencing a burnout, you've got to stop. You've literally just got to stop everything that you're doing. You've got to cancel things in your diary. You've got to just stop and rest as much as possible. The only cure for burnout is to rest and to treat it like a physical illness. In fact, a lot of the symptoms are quite physical, really. So treat it as a physical illness. Go to bed, close the curtains, get as much rest and sleep as you possibly can. And yeah, don't try to push through burnout, because if you don't stop burnout, it will eventually stop you. And you really don't want that to happen. So I hope you found this useful. Thank you for tuning in again. I've got some free resources I wanted to share with you. I've made a new thing for you. It's called the Work Stress Breakthrough, and it's my free guide. You basically get a free journal to either type into on your laptop or use with a notebook to make some notes, and a video where I'm coaching you through how to discover the number one thing that's holding you back in terms of work stress, and how you can take the most important step in overcoming it. So you can download this on my website, karma-u.com/stress. So it's karma-u.com/stress to get the work stress breakthrough. And I hope that really serves you.